Okay, so an absolute seismic event in the atheist community. I kid you not. I won Ayaan Hirsi Ali. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. I don't know if I am. I don't think I've ever heard it spoken out loud or enunciated. Has converted, I kid you not, to Christianity. Ayaan Hirsi Ali says and so, Craig. It is so. It is so. And the atheist cope is really fun to watch. The Atheist Meltdown is really fun. And it's going on Twitter as we speak. Now, I knew vaguely who this person was. I knew that she had deconverted from radical Islam and she was a opponent of Islam in the public sphere. But I didn't quite realize she was an atheist. And I didn't quite realize she was an atheist to the extent that she was. How I got hip to this fact, okay, I kid you not, in one single day, for those of you who do not think this is a big deal because you do not actually recognize the name, let me clue you in right now. It is a big deal. It's almost seismic. It's not quite seismic, but it's getting pretty close. How I got hip to that fact was that, in one single day of Twitter, Matt Dillahunty, Friendly Atheist, and Aaron Ra, amongst many others, tweeted about this. Now, I've never seen that happen about any other event in a single day in my entire time on Twitter. Never. So that told me, right then and there, wait, this is actually a bigger deal than I realized. So I started, looking into her a little bit. Turns out she was almost one of the four horsemen. She was pretty much an atheist insider and the Insiders Club. There's a picture of Aaron Ra hanging out with her. So this is a really big deal, and this is pretty seismic. And if you're an atheist, I'm not here to rub salt in your wounds. I kid you not. I'm not. It's not what I'm doing. I'm a bigger person than that. I'm trying to help you. You're trying to help me, Greg? Yeah, I'm really trying to help you. I want to help you. I want to talk you through this. I want to really help you process this so that we're all, I think it's a teachable moment. Now, there are two main copes going on Twitter as we speak. It's only for the people who really know who she is, but they're really traumatized by this. And how it's manifesting is two main copes, okay? There's no arguments in her thing. She didn't really convert to Christianity. She just, that's one. There's the more ludicrous cope. Let's deal with the more ludicrous cope first. The more ludicrous cope goes something like this. People who are having trouble processing it and won't tell you that. This is what I mean by a cope. Everyone should know what I mean. But they're having a lot of trouble processing it. It's really, really traumatic for them. But they don't want to admit that. So they get on Twitter to pretend they don't care. Okay, there are a lot of things in life I don't care about. Guess what? Guess what the clue that I don't care about it is? What? I don't tweet about it. Oh, rocket science, right? Yeah, I don't. If I don't care, I don't tweet. Why? Because I literally don't care. So you do care. It's really obviously a cope, dude. You should have thought of that before you tweeted. Why? It's really transparently a cope. And the more you try and go, no big deal, it's obviously a big deal. I'm sorry for pointing out the obvious, but that's the obvious. There are some atheists. Now, I said this to an atheist I got in a conversation with, Jen from Kansas City, really cool girl. I'm friends with her for a long time on Twitter. There are some atheists who legitimately don't care. She's one of them. There are some atheists who are not playing teams at all. They're not even playing teams a little. They're just doing their atheist thing. And there are some atheists who might legitimately not know who she is. Okay, the Answers from Reason crew, they probably know who she is, but I sincerely doubt that they care. Why? Because they're not playing teams. They're not keeping score. But a lot of the other atheists, in fact, are keeping score. And for those atheists who are keeping score, if you're one of the atheists who tweeted about it, and if you tweet about it under the premise that you don't care, okay, you do care and you are keeping score. And you should look at that. Why? Because it's really important. It's really important. It's an important fact about you. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm just telling you the God's honest truth. The things I don't care about, I don't tweet about. That's how you know I don't care. Why? Because I don't tweet at all. I don't bother. Why? Because I literally don't care. So if you tweeted about it, you care. I promise. You care a lot. And if you tweeted about it under the fake premise that you really don't care, then you really care a lot. And you're playing teams. And you shouldn't be. Why? Because some of the people who are playing teams surprised me a little bit. You are playing teams, and you should check that out. Why? Because you shouldn't be. You're above that at this point, I think. I doubt the Answers Reason crew will care. I really do. Because they're not playing teams. I would care. Again, I'm here to help you. I'm here to talk you through it. If it were a big deal Christian like a William Lane Craig, I would care. I'd get over it in a day or two, and I wouldn't tweet about it. Why? Because I'd recognize that me tweeting about it would clue everybody into the fact that I cared too much. But I'd care. I'd be somewhat traumatized by that if it was someone really big and inside. for like inspiring philosophy or, William Lane Craig or somebody like really, really prominent, I would care, but I'd get over it pretty quickly. Okay, the reason why there were two big public deconversions over the last few years, and the reason why I literally didn't care in those cases, I literally had no idea who they were. One was John Steingrad of Hawk Nelson, okay, Christian band. After my time, I converted to Christianity before he was famous, I guess. I don't even know how famous he was. Why? Because I never heard of the band. And I had my season when I first became a Christian when I was trying to get into like DC Talk and Delirious and Jars of Clay, and some of you know who those bands are. But it didn't last very long. It lasted about 2 years, and I gave up and went back to secular music. Why? Because it just wasn't that interesting. So I never really knew who Hawk Nelson was. So I had no idea who John Steingrad was. That's why I didn't care. And the other one was Rhett and Link from some, YouTube. They're both legitimately pretty well known. They're both legitimately, minor celebrities, and I had no idea who they were, so I didn't really care that much. Other than that, I would probably care too. If it were an insider like this woman seemed to be, I would care. So I'm telling you, you have every right to care. I'm not making fun of you for caring. I'm legitimately trying to help you kind of process it, talk you through it. Now, two main copes going on Twitter. One, as I said, I think I already said, is absolutely ludicrous. Goes something like this. There's variations on this theme. Okay, I don't care at all. I mean, I'm not even surprised. She's been trending toward anti-woke conservative for years now. Okay, that's a ludicrous cope. That's not even slightly plausible. Cope's got to be somewhat plausible, okay? Otherwise, they're too transparent, everybody sees through you. Why that's not even slightly plausible is Richard Dawkins himself has been trending anti-woke and trending towards conservatism for years as well. And it would be a really big deal if he turned around one day and said, by the way, all this stuff is really getting to me. I'm converting to Christianity. That'd be a freaking earthquake. And consequently, if the shoe were on the other foot, let's take someone like Pope Francis. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but he's basically kind of a left-leaning, kind of a wokester, actually. I think he's Mr. Gay Rights. I don't know all the details that well. I don't pay that close attention. I do know that he's the Pope, which is pretty prominent in Catholicism, right? Correct? Okay, yeah, big deal, okay. And I do know that he's very left-leaning. Some would say, really, really left-leaning. And I don't know exactly how it manifests itself. He's kind of a socialist. Some would say a communist. He's, Mr. Gay Rights. He's somewhat woke. He probably wants to have trans. I don't know how far it goes at all. Okay, but if he turned around one day and said, all this leftist stuff is really starting to take root in my spirit, and guess what? Now I'm an atheist. That would be cataclysmic to the Catholic community. It'd be an absolute earthquake. It'd be an absolute earthquake. So this isn't quite that. She wasn't a four horseman, but she was pretty close to a four horseman. She actually, if you read her conversion testimony, which I did, she was friends with the four horsemen. That's a big part of the testimony. But Aaron Ra has a picture of her and him together. That means this was the insider's insider. And she's now one of us. So you should care. If you're playing teams, you should care. Why? Because we won a round. What do you want me to say? It's pretty obvious. We won a much bigger round than you think you won when William Lane Craig said, I lower my upper stomach standards. Much bigger round than that. And I bet you $1,000, a lot of atheists are going to care. And I bet you we see, we've already seen Myth Vision Podcast put out a video. I bet you in the next 2 weeks we see 50, every single content creator puts out a video on the topic telling us why they don't care. Okay. Just be aware, if you do that, it's transparent. We know you care. Right? Because if I don't care, I don't put out a video. Understood? It's pretty straightforward logic, right? If I don't care, I don't tweet about it and I don't put out a video. So if you put out a video saying, I really don't care, it's going to be really transparent. Just letting you know ahead of time. We're going to know that you do. It's a cope, and we're going to see through it. Now, the second cope is on firmer ground, but there are ludicrous versions of the second cope. Matt Dillon's version of the second cope is ludicrous. He starts going like he doesn't care, as if he doesn't care at all. She doesn't even mention Jesus or Christianity in the whole conversion testimony. Like it doesn't count unless she's Frank Turk Jr. Like, I swear to God, that's what he tweeted. Go look. Like, yeah, okay. She didn't say Jesus loved me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Therefore, it doesn't really count. She's not really a Christian. It's ludicrous. There are variations on that cope that are better. Aaron Ra's is okay. Secular Outpost is decent. It's kind of like a variation on, she doesn't really seem to have believe in Christianity so much as she's become a cultural Christian. This is the charitable reading of the second cope. Second cope is what I'm going to deal with in the video. Okay, the gist of the second cope is there's no real argument for God buried in there. There's no real reason to believe. Okay, this is where you're wrong. If you believe in the second cope, which I'm giving you right now ahead of time, charitably offering that is a much better cope than the first cope, it's on firmer ground. Okay, that means you haven't been listening to my videos and you should listen to my videos. Why? Because then you see this stuff coming a mile away. I could have literally told you about this, and I have. And some of it is predicated. I read her Christian conversion testimony, and there are unspoken premises in there and unspoken assumptions in there, something I've been talking about for months. Unspoken worldview assumptions buried in there that actually represent, if you lift them out into the broad light of day, a really powerful and compelling argument for the existence of God. I kid you not. I kid you not. So let's take a look. I looked at her Christian testimony, like I said. Didn't know that much about her prior to this. Didn't realize that she was one of the almost the four horsemen. But she starts off, she started out as a radical jihadi Muslim extremist by her own accord. Okay, by her own words, a radical jihadi Muslim extremist. Now, if I had my druthers, I would rather someone deconvert from that and become an atheist than a jihadi extremist. I think that's a better way to be. Radical atheist lives next door. Even an extremist atheist, the most he'd be is annoying. The radical Muslim moves next door, there's a good chance I'd get beheaded. Okay, so I'd much prefer her to be an atheist. But then this is what she started to do, and this is actually in her testimony, clear as day. She started to examine, she said, one of the things that she says was a lot of what the predicate was for her becoming an atheist. Again, these are hidden assumptions. This isn't out quite so clear, but if you read between the lines, you can infer this. There's basically a chain of inferences in her writing, in her conversion testimony, that can be ferreted out and point to a really strong and compelling argument for the existence of God. I'm not kidding. I promise. And that's what I'm about to do right now, unpack it for you in this video so you see it yourself. Like I said, atheism is trying to help you. Trying to help you. Why? Because if you don't think there's a powerful argument for God hidden in there, you're not going to be able to argue against it when the day comes when it's stuff that I've been working on in my videos, literally telling people I've been working on. It's what I may have even mentioned by name as what I have called the Jordan Peterson values-based argument for the existence of God. I literally have named it that, for lack of a better title. Values-based argument for the existence of God. Did you read her testimony? Do you understand how that's going to apply? Okay? Am I telling you the truth? Yes, I'm telling you the truth. So the first thing she says, part of the reason, the unspoken reason why she became an atheist is one of the reasons I told you why people convert to everything. She found the personalities very compelling. Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris. She mentions by name some of the four horsemen and says she really liked them. They were erudite, intelligent, civilized. She took a picture of them and said, that's my mirror. That's who I want to become. That is 1,000 times more likely to bring you into a fold than any arguments on the surface. Because that's how human beings really operate. Something I've been talking about in my videos for a long time. And none of you have believed me thus far. There it is in black and white. Part of the reason she became an atheist is she looked at Richard Dawkins and some of the four horsemen said, they're intelligent, civilized, funny. That's the type of person I want to be. And then she noticed the most obvious thing about them, they're prominent atheists. I want to be an atheist. That's how most people operate, guys. That's why most people become whatever they become. Because they're attracted to the type of person, not compelled by the arguments and the evidence. That is something we tell ourselves here in this community because it makes us think we're more important than we in fact are when we aren't all that important at all. We aren't all that relevant at all. So, there you have it. That's why, big part of why she became an atheist. But then she started doing something very interesting. She, as this new person who was an atheist, she started noticing that the Western civilization, the values of Western civilization, prior to any exploration of where those values originated in, she started noticing that they are really, really much better than value system all over the world. And they were very near and dear to her heart. And she started really caring about them very deeply. Then she started engaging with Tom Holland, some who you atheists disparage. You shouldn't disparage. He's on firm ground. And he's pointing out something that's really obvious, and 100 different people come out with 100 different books pointing out the exact same thing. The values of Western civilization. This is it in a nutshell. The values of Western civilization however you define the good values of Western civilization, not the terrible ones, the lazy kids, and the whatever, not the bad ones, smoking weed all the time, underachieving, lazy children. No, not that one. Really permissive. No, not that one either. The good values, okay? Basic human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to vote, things like that. She noticed that they were intrinsically and deeply linked. Intrinsically and deeply linked to Christianity. And more specifically, even to the Bible itself. Now, if you're an atheist, that should be a shockwave through you. Why? Because you spend a lot of your time making fake arguments against the Bible. Some of you are literally going, ew, the Bible? You mean the book of genocide and hatred? Yeah, that book. That's a fake argument about the Bible. There's actual, real predicate for the values of Western civilization buried in the Bible. Remember, the Bible is bar none. And there's a lot of compelling evidence to back this case up. I shouldn't even have to make this case. It's so obvious. Why? Because the Bible is bar none the most influential book in the history of Western civilization by far. Nothing else is even close. I can't even think of what a close second would be. Maybe Plato's Republic. Critique of Pure Reason, maybe third. Maybe, I don't know, Brothers Karamazov. I can't even think of what Shakespeare plays. I can't even think of what would be a close second. The Bible would be 50% influence on the entirety of Western civilization. The close second might be Plato's Republic, I guess. Be like 4%, 5%. Bible is profoundly influential to how we live today. And I can prove it. Why? Because for a long time, Christianity, Western civilization was known quite specifically as what? Christendom. It was the same thing. It was identical to Christianity. So it's really, really prominent value system, deeply embedded to how we live, sleep, eat, and breathe today. Intrinsically linked in a very deep way. That's what Tom Holland got hip to when he started studying studying it. He's 100% correct. The more you study it, the more that will reveal itself to you. That is contrary to atheist propaganda, but atheist propaganda, honest to God, is really kind of dense. It's really kind of dumb. I mean, the atheist take on the Bible is stupid. Borderline, oh, it's a book of slavery and genocide. Okay. The Old Testament itself, there's like, what, two sentences about slavery in the book of Exodus? It's not exactly a prominent theme in the how you own. If you listen to the anti-theist take on the Bible, you would literally think the entire Old Testament is like a manual for how you treat your slaves. It's not. It's not. There's a lot going on in the Bible. So she noticed correctly and powerfully, just as Jordan Peterson did. That's why I labeled it the Jordan Peterson values-based argument for the existence of God. Both of them came to the conclusion, independent of the Bible, independent of religious teachings or religious doctrines, that the values of Western civilization were superior to values in other cultures all around the world. If you don't agree with that, okay, you can walk away from this video right now because we got nothing to talk about. If you don't agree with that, we are on the same page. And I'm not going to argue the case. Some of you who are secular humanists out there in the atheist community understand that that is the case. When Matt Dillahunty makes his case for secular humanism, he always appeals to values that are intrinsic to Western civilization. Again, freedom of religion, basic human rights, freedom of expression, everyone gets a right to vote, things like that. These are intrinsically linked with the society we live in and is the best society thus far created on the planet. And those valued systems are deeply intrinsically tied in with Christianity. Let's take the one that I've cited a few times. So if you're a secular humanist, you know this. This is why I say this is a teachable moment. Why? Because you can look and examine this for yourself. If you've decided, independent of Christianity, independent of any religious teachings, that you're a secular humanist, why? Because they have a better value system. Examine what you actually think the better value system is. Almost every single one of you is going to say something like basic human rights, right? Okay, two interesting things about that. The first is the universalist ethos is literally almost impossible to justify given atheism. Now, this is where this is going to start getting complicated. Okay, those of you who are not philosophically minded are not going to understand this at first listen. You're not. You're not. You're going to tell me I'm wrong because you don't know what you're talking about, but you're not going to get this. Okay, this is relatively complicated. If you are an atheist and you say, you can ask yourself this question right now. Do you think basic human rights is a value that you hold to? Okay, what that is in fact is called a universal ought. A universal ought. A universal ought, and if you got anything out of my videos, okay, remember this one phrase made famous by Hume 500 years ago. Why? Because it's profoundly important. You cannot derive an ought from an is. What does that mean? That means when Matt Dillahunty is telling us why he's a secular humanist, he will literally say, because these value systems are superior, these are universal oughts. What does that mean? They transcend time and they transcend culture, which means they ought to be the case everywhere all over the globe. Everybody should have basic human rights. That's a universal ought. You cannot derive an ought from an is. That's a fact. What does that mean? That means when he tries to look for a justification for his deeply held belief, it is more akin to a deeply held faith claim or religious belief. Why? Because you can't justify it given atheism. It isn't according to the empirical facts. He will tell you the justification for his secular humanism. Secular humanism can be defined simply like this. Secular, not according to any transcendent morality. The problem, a universal ought, what? Is quite literally transcendent morality. So there's quite literally a contradiction right then and there. Secular, again, everyone cool with this definition of secular? Not according to any transcendent morality. A universal ought, everyone should be cool with this definition. Transcendent morality. You see the contradiction? Do you see the contradiction? So if you actually believe, and you should believe, I'm not faulting Matt Dillahunty for believing that basic human rights are better for everybody. Why? Because they are. He's correct. But how does he come to that conclusion as an atheist? He'll tell you why secular humanism is superior is because it relies on empirical verification. Okay, I just told you, you cannot derive an ought from an is, which means empirical verification won't work. Why? Because you can't derive an ought from an is. Why? Because an ought is transcendent, immaterial, has no spatial temporal locality. It is basically an idea that transcends time and culture. And if it is a superior idea, and it is a superior idea, there's literally almost no way to justify that as an atheist. You can try. You can't do it. Now, like I said, that's a relatively complicated argument. But ultimately, what I've been pointing out in my videos is that is an argument that a lot of atheists are going to struggle with, because those are the arguments that I say are coming, and they're coming strong. And she basically said that. Okay? If you read between the lines, that's what she said. She said, I am a Christian now because Western values are superior to all other value systems all over the world, and they're intrinsically linked to Christianity. So she said, there's got to be some truth content in Christianity that couldn't be the case. She didn't quite spell that unspoken premise out. That's an unspoken premise. That's also an unspoken premise of Jordan Peterson. He'll tell you about the Old Testament and how insightful it is, and he'll say it couldn't possibly be useful if there wasn't truth in it. That's a normal chain of inference and a powerful and compelling and real inference. And it happens to be the case. So when Matt Dillahunty tells you, and he will tell you this if you get him talking about secular humanism, he'll say, basic human rights, a transcendent universal ought to be the case for all people in all cultures. Then you ask him a simple question. Why is that? How did you come to that conclusion, Matt? He will struggle to answer you. Why? Because there is no answer. It is not according to the empirical data points at all. You cannot derive an ought from an is. You certainly can't derive a universal ought from an is. Easy to justify given theism, literally almost impossible to justify given atheism. Did you hear what I said? Easy to justify given theism. Matter of fact, it's in the freaking Bible. The Bible that you the secular humanists, disparage. Oh, the book of genocide and hate. No, the book of universal brotherhood of man. There's an actual predicate in the Bible that's really obvious and really compelling. Why should everyone have the basic human rights? Why does it have an intrinsic worth? First, it says in the Old Testament, every man is made in the image of God. That means we're all brothers underneath the skin. We're all part of the same family. That's a powerful and compelling justification that's completely legit. We're for all God's children, then we're all God's children, which means the homeless guy in the street, yeah, he might smell and act weird and be talking crazy talk. You know, he's crazy, Craig. He smells really bad. I understand that. He's not doing too well. He's not doing too well in this world. Why? He's sensitive. I don't know. He's a sensitive soul. Give him a break. He's a brother underneath the skin. How do you know that Bible says so? Every man made in the image of God. That means that smelly weirdo is made in the image of God too. He is. And then it doubles down on the concept in the New Testament. That which you've done unto the least of my children, you've done unto me. So not only is he made in the image of God, he's practically Jesus Christ in the flesh. How we treat him is how we treat Jesus. And Jesus is our main, that's our main thing in Christianity. That's a powerful and compelling and real justification for a universal ought. It's completely satisfactory. Try and justify a universal ought given atheism. Try it. Think about it. You're an atheist. There's a guy, homeless guy down the street. Oh, I ought to go feed and clothe and help him. Why? Matt Dillahunty says, I ought to go feed and help that guy. Why, Matt Dillahunty? It may move his heart to do so. Christian would say that's God moving your heart to do so, as spelled out by the Bible. But what's the justification for you doing that if you're an atheist? Remember Richard Dawkins. Okay, it wouldn't surprise me if Richard Dawkins converts somewhat to Christianity along the same lines. Why? Because he's the one who made the famous, if he is to be believed and atheism is the case, what did he say it means? It means there's no good, there's no evil, it's all matter in motion, and there's no moral decisions to be made about anything whatsoever. I forget the exact phrasing of it, but you know the phrasing is pretty famous Dawkins thing. He's correct. He's correct. If you analyze atheism and it's all matter in motion, then there's absolutely no justification on earth to give the flyingest fig about the homeless guy down the street. You might as well go help out an ant. You ever help out? Those ants are really not doing well. Let me go feed and clothe them. Why? Because he's irrelevant. He's not one of you. He's not brother underneath the skin. He's not made in the image of God. He's just, a different bag of flesh than you. Who cares what he smells and he's weird and he probably brought it on himself. Why, he's probably drinking and beat his wife. That's why he's homeless. But the point is, if Matt Dillahunty is moved to compassion to aid his fellow man, the fellow man who isn't doing well, who's unequal, he's unequal according to the society, he's unequal according to his abilities. So the only thing that gives him intrinsic worth is what? According to actual atheism. Not according to secular humanism, because they try to circle the square. Do you see what the issue is? Secular humanists might be somewhat aware of the fact that there is no actual predicate for this. There is no justification for this given atheism. Think about it. I'm not telling you anybody to answer me tonight. I'm really not. I'm telling you that what I've been saying the whole time, there are really compelling and powerful arguments in the Christian community that haven't even been brought to the table yet. And they're actually arguments for God. That is a values-based argument for God. I kid you not, there's the guy, some of you may know famous evangelist Ron. Ron, powerhouse Christian on fire for the Lord. Started out exactly the way Ali, Hirsi, whatever her face is. Whatever her face. I forget whatever her name is. He started out the exact same way. He started going, Ron, am I lying, Ron? No, Craig, you tell the truth. And he's a powerhouse Christian. He's out like milking the chickens and he goes and reads the gospel to whatever. I don't know, he goes and helps the poor. Right? Right, Craig. I was out feeding the chickens. I was out milking the chickens, and then I went to read the gospel to, poor people in the other town. Okay, thanks, Rob. That was really helpful. Go look at his testimony. It's an actual compelling, when it's fully fleshed out and brought into the cold light of day, it actually makes a really compelling chain of inferences that leads you to the conclusion that God exists. It's not quite in her Christian conversion, but there are unspoken premises there that actually point you to a really powerful and compelling argument for God. And it's one that I've been calling the values-based argument for the existence of God. And like I said, these are arguments that are coming down the pike. If I didn't quite spell it out all that clearly in this particular video, don't really matter. Why? Because there are arguments coming down the pike that are going to be really compelling and real, and there's a whole bunch of them along these same lines. Things that are really hard to justify given atheism. As a naturalist, as a reductionist materialist, that's where most atheists are at, how do you justify universal ought? You can't. You can't. The only possible thing you can do, and like I said, this is ultimately only going to be for the smart set. Why? Because the only people who are really going to be able to cope are the philosophical atheists. Because they'll be able to, fight you to a draw in a debate. I can tell you, I can make an educated guess as to how Matt Dillahunty will argue the case. Go, I'm not aware that I have to justify. You haven't made a compelling case, then I have to justify. Why universal ought? I just think it's the better way. Whatever. He'll find some sort of gimmicky shoehorn reason to say that the universal ought is legit. But if you really examine the universal ought and you say this is actually the better way, that's what happened with Hirsi. She examined her deeply held convictions and beliefs, independent of Christianity, and said many of these are indistinguishable or totally intrinsically linked to Christianity. How could Christianity be saying this many things that are life-affirming, reasonable, and on point if it wasn't in some ultimate way true? That's a normal chain of inferences. That is a normal, logical, completely compelling, and reasonable chain of inferences. And if I haven't spelled it out all that clearly in this particular video, get ready, get ready, get ready. Why? Because there's other videos coming down the pike where I'll spell it out clear as day. This is my first attempt at this particular thing. I think I talked about it in the last video. I forget. So, are we all clear on what exactly happened here? What is the ultimate moral of the story? What is the lesson to be learned? If you are an atheist and you call yourself a secular human, if you don't think Western civilization is superior, walk away from the table. You don't listen to the video. We got nothing to talk about. Why? You and I don't agree. Fundamentally, at the baseline level, you and I are totally at odds. I can't imagine what you're thinking. If you are a secular humanist, then you think that Western civilization has superior value system. Those values, take a deep look. Let's take one like basic human rights, which almost everybody listening to me agree is the right way. Until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard for race. Me say war. And until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes. Me say war. So if you think that that is actually a true and universal ought, which you are correct, we agree on a deep way about the value system. See, we're not that different, atheists. I told you I was going to help you cope. We aren't that different. Neither is Hirsi Ali. Why? Because she's paying attention to the culture we live in and correctly adjudicating what about this makes it better. What about this makes it a better place to live? And you do not want to live in a place where they do not respect your basic human rights. I promise you don't. Why? Because that's hell on earth. In America, we may only give lip service to it, but that lip service is profoundly important. It's enshrined in the Constitution. Basic human rights, that is a universal ought. If that value system is superior, and I promise you on pain of death that value system is superior, not a single person listening to me wants to live someplace where that is not honored, because there's a good chance you'd be the odd man out. Okay? So nobody wants to live in a society where that isn't honored, where you don't have your basic human rights. That is a universal ought that cannot be justified given atheism. It cannot be justified given any secular interpretation of life. Why? Because it is transcendent, immaterial. It is not predicated on any material configuration whatsoever. It is not found according to any empirical discoveries. It is not out there in the world being detected by observation and experience. It is resolute, a truth, eternally true. It is true today, tomorrow, and forever, eternally, prior to our engagement with this particular idea. It was true back then. The closest thing, justification you can find, Jesus Christ, the same, yesterday, today, forever. It's the same idea. Universal ought. Basic human rights are absolutely foundationally necessary for any civil society to be successful. That is true today, yesterday, and forever. It is universally the case. There is no way you can justify or even figure that out to be the case given atheism. Why? Because the only tools at your disposal, by your own admission, if someone wants to think of complicated ways to justify it, be my guest. I'm willing to listen. There's a couple of philosophically minded atheists out there who could probably try to find some other way to argue the case. I'm just telling you it's going to be hard. I'm not telling you it's not doable. I'm telling you it's going to be really hard. If it's universally the case, then it is transcendent, eternally true, true now, forever, and always. It was true yesterday, it was true tomorrow, it's true for all people in all places. How on earth can you justify that given atheism? One of the main tools at your disposal, empirical investigation. It's not going to be found by empirical investigation. Why? Because you can't derive an ought from an isn't located there. Cannot derive an ought from an is. If you memorize nothing else about my videos, you should memorize a lot. If you memorize nothing else, burn that sentence into your brain. Why? Because it's going to be a profoundly useful tool. It's a profound insight from Hume 500 years after the fact. It still holds true, and it's profoundly insightful. You cannot derive an ought from an is. Why? Because there is no such thing as a material location, has no spatial temporal locality, is not located in materials at all, the ought. It is transcendent and immaterial. So if you hold a universal ought to be true, there's some other justification that you need to find other than empiricism. Good luck finding it given atheism. Like I said, I can pretty much guess at what the arguments will be going forward. I'm not aware that I need to justify it. I can pretty much predict what Matt Dillahunty will say. I'm not aware that you made a case that I need to justify. Well, you do need to justify it. Just for your own edification. Try. You're an atheist, you're a smart atheist, philosophical atheist, you dumbass atheist, please stop commenting on my videos. Why? Because you guys are wasting my time. Veveke, is that your name? Vivek, you waste my time. You're a clown, dude. The problem with the atheists is stupid atheists, okay? Stupid atheists are stupid Christians. A lot of stupid atheists, a lot of stupid Christians. As far as I'm aware, this irks me no end. The stupid atheists get in your face and pretend that they know what they're talking about. That's the real problem. Go look at Veveke in my last video. The guy was a freaking idiot. Didn't even understand the basics of theology. Trying to get in my face, talking, well, the Bible is a book of mythology. Just spouting imbecile atheist talking points that aren't relevant. And I try to explain to him why they're not relevant. He can't even process the information. Why? Because you're a clown, dude. Because you're an idiot. There are dumb Christians. As far as I know, the dumb Christians aren't aggressively in your face trying to pretend they're more intelligent than you. They freaking dumb atheists do that every single solitary day. Every single day I'm on Twitter, the dumb atheists do that all the time. You guys got to stop that. Why? Because you're embarrassing yourselves and you don't even know it. It's one thing to be dumb. Keep your mouth shut if you're dumb and you don't know what you're talking about. Veveke. Talking to you, fool. Go look at his stupid comments. They're there. I'm not erasing them. Go look. Buffoon. Total buffoon. Sorry for ranting, but God, it was so annoying. Doesn't even understand basics. He's literally trying to argue to me that the Bible isn't relevant when we were talking about theology. I said literally to the guy, if you're talking about the Christian God, the Bible literally says, now we see through glass darkly. We were talking about confusion about all the different 32,000 different denominations. And Dusty tries to say that that's a pretty decent argument for God. It's a terrible argument for God. And I said, if you're talking about the Christian God, the Bible literally says, now we see through glass darkly, implying this is hard to figure out. The Bible literally says it's hard to figure out. So you would expect confusion. You would expect a whole bunch of, different denominations thinking different things. The Bible literally says we see through glass darkly. You know what happens when you see through glass darkly? What? You bump into things. You don't get things right. Why? It means it's hard to figure out. So the Bible literally tells you Christianity is hard to figure out. So we'd expect that there'd be all these different denominations, all this confusion. That's what we'd expect if we're reading the Bible correctly. Idiot gets on the thing, goes, the Bible's a book of myths and fairy tales. Dumbass atheist talking point. It's also foundational Western civilization, you stupid idiot. You stupid idiot, Veveke, looking at you, fool. Atheists train some of these people to be stupid, aggressively stupid, in your face stupid. It's unbelievable. If you're stupid, keep your mouth shut, dude. I don't need to argue with someone who's just being dumb. So he goes, it's not relevant. Yeah, it might not. You might not think it's true. It's profoundly relevant to a Christian interpretation of reality, dumbass. I tried to explain that to him 5 or 6 times. And he tells me, I don't get what he says because I don't understand how smart he is. I literally said that. Go look. I don't understand his argument. Your argument is idiotic. This is the real argument, fool. What the Bible says, you might not think it's true. That's fine with me. You're an atheist, I don't expect you to think it's true, but it's profoundly relevant when we're talking about theology. To a Christian understanding of God, it's as relevant as it could possibly be. So you're wrong. And you argue with me for you wasted an hour. It took me an hour to argue with this clown. So many atheists like that. You guys got to stop that. You're embarrassing yourselves. You don't even know it. I'm not kidding. You're going to be embarrassed one day. You're going to be really embarrassed one day. You're going to be, wow, was I really that aggressively stupid? Yeah, you were really that aggressively stupid. You were totally wrong, and you just keep insisting that you're the smart one. As far as I'm aware, no Christian does it. There are a lot of dumb Christians that do not get in your face and pretend that they're the smartest person in town. Correct? I've never seen a Christian do that. If you ever see a Christian do that, point it out to me. Why? Because I'll school him. I'll pull him aside. I will. Look, you're bad luck for the whole community. Shut your mouth, fool. The guy's right. I will. I've scolded a Christian here and there when they being, doing something I didn't think was kosher. Don't do it very often, but I will if I have to. I've never seen a Christian do that. A lot of dumb Christians, I've never seen them flex on you like they're smarter than you. Never. Atheists do it every day. Every single day, atheists flex on me like they know what they're talking about when they have no idea. Godless Liz, the person I bring up all the time, she does that every day. She does it every day. She's the smartest person in town. She understands science. Christians are so dumb. Okay, Liz. I swear to God, she tweets it. She probably tweeted it today. She probably tweeted something. Go look. She probably tweeted something today about how dumb Christians are and how we don't understand science. Ditzy Blonde, yeah, you get it all. You really understand quantum mechanics really well. Get me started on that. So anyways, I'll wrap it up again. Start to ramble. Just have fun. That's it. That's what starts to happen. A lot of this is just fun for me. Honest to God, it's just fun. That's why I start to ramble and go into different points and stuff. I think all the points that I bring up are relevant. Honestly, I do. I think that's the last thing I said was profoundly relevant. Why? Because it's why people don't like atheists. Everybody hates a know-it-all. Everybody can't stand a know-it-all who doesn't know what they're talking about. Everybody hates a know-it-all. Did you know that? Now you know. Everybody hates a know-it-all. The one person that nobody can stand anywhere on earth is a know-it-all who doesn't get it. That's the person that everybody called a nerd. That's why they called him a nerd, because they didn't get it. They didn't call him a nerd because they were smarter than everybody. That's what the nerd wanted to tell himself, because he was an arrogant little twerp who couldn't adopt social graces. Why? Because he's too arrogant to just shut his mouth and fit in. It's really easy to fit in with a group of guys. What? You shut your mouth and go along with the program. Simple. It's really simple. What's the program? We're going to shoot pool, drink beer, talk about Led Zeppelin. I'm in. It sounds fun. Does it sound intellectual? No. It's exactly what we did, though. What's on the program for today, Craig? We're going to play football, then we're going to go shoot pool, we're going to drink beer, talk about Led Zeppelin. Hey, is that what we did yesterday? Yeah, we're not the brightest, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed. That's what we do for entertainment. Okay, fine, I'm in. Or is it going to be girls there? No, but we'll get the girls eventually. Why? Because we're cool. We're not difficult. We're easy to figure out. Okay, good. I'm in. That's why you were a nerd. Because you couldn't get with the program. The program was easy. What are we doing? We're going to a horror movie, and then we're going to drink beers and listen to Pink Floyd. I'm in. Sounds fun. It's easy. It's easy unless you're a nerd. Unless you've got some axe to grind against the group to prove how smart you are. Other than that, it's easy. I was smarter than most of the people I hung out with. It didn't bother me. Why? Because I just didn't have anything to prove. There's one or two guys who were as smart as me, or maybe smarter. Who knows? Some would say smarter. I'd say I was smarter, but, whatever. But I didn't have anything to prove. I never flexed against anybody, try to prove I was smarter than anyone in my crew. Why? Because it'd be idiotic. Be stupid. It's a waste of time. Get with the program. I was satisfied with my position in the pecking order. I was one of the cool kids. I wasn't the coolest kid ever. That would be Willie Jacobs. I wasn't the smartest and the best looking, even though I thought I was the smartest and the best looking. It wasn't didn't get the most girls. I did okay. Landed the hottest wife. Thank you very much. Thank you. Landed by far the hottest wife out of the whole crew. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hold the applause. Anyways, okay, I'm rambling. So, with that, I will wrap her up. Go reread Hirsi Ali's conversion testimony. There's a really powerful and compelling argument buried in there. I kid you not. I promise. It's exactly what I said it was. Values-based argument for the existence of God. And in the future, I'm going to be making videos on just that topic. Values-based argument for the existence of God. And it's why Ron, who's now a fully committed Christian, became a Christian. It's literally how the trajectory happened. Started with the chain of inferences. These values are superior to values all over the world, and I think they're deeply true. And they're intrinsically linked to Christianity, which means Christianity's got something to say on the topic that's true. It's not just talking about genocide and slavery. That's an imbecile take on the Bible. That's an imbecile take on the Bible. Sorry to burst your bubble. That's not a legit take on the Bible. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's never going to last. You can think it's going to last because you're winning a little bit with it now as a propaganda tool. It's not going to last. Why? Because it's a stupid take on the Bible. Even slavery. Yeah, the Old Testament endorsed slavery. It's 10 sentences. This how many pages in the Old Testament? 800? 10 sentences, Craig, corrupts the whole thing. And like I said, it's halfway decent argument against inerrancy. It is literally a terrible argument against, it's no justification for atheism whatsoever. Why? Because it's irrelevant to the ontological status of God. But I've already talked about that 1,000 times, so I won't go down that. I won't say that again. So, there you have it, kids. That's all for now. Another slam dunk video, if you ask me. This one was I thought a barn burner, to tell you the truth. Some of it was really fun. So, there you go. There you have it. If you're an atheist and you can't cope with the fact that one of the best and the brightest in your community, an insider is now a Christian, get ready. Why? Because her predicate for becoming a Christian is pretty obvious. It's pretty straightforward, and I don't see how you can argue against it. I'll wait for somebody to argue the case against me. I don't see any argument against me. I really don't. The gist of it's why Jordan Peterson started trending Christianity. Same reason. Said Western civilization is better than every civilization that's ever been under the sun. Yeah, it's got flaws. I understand that. It produces lazy kids who smoke weed. I understand that. Being one of them myself, yeah, I understand. But it's still superior to every other civilization. And why? Because there's some foundational universal oughts that are embedded in our sacred, commonly held belief systems. And they've worked our way into our legal codes, and they've worked their way into our whole way of being. They're intrinsically linked to Christianity. They're inseparable from them. The only one I'm aware that there's no biblical justification for is freedom of speech. As far as I know, it's not in the Bible at all. Every other one is in the Bible to some degree or another, including freedom from religion. That which is Caesar's, Caesar's, render unto Caesar that which is his. Freedom of religion is in the Bible too. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Whose face is on the coin? Whose face is on the coin? Caesar's. Okay, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Ours is a kingdom of heaven. That's what that means. People on the earth can conduct themselves with earthly things. As Christians, we're supposed to obey the laws and be good and dutiful citizens. So, there you have it, kids. That's all for now. I'll wrap her up. Another barn burner, if you ask me. Go watch the old videos. If you don't see how I saw that her argument coming, it's there in my old videos. And I'll be, ferreting it out and strengthening it in videos to come. I think it's a really compelling argument for the existence of God, not just ultimately for values that are better. I think in order to have better values, there's got to be some transcendent truth behind the entire project. That's the point. That's what started occurring to Jordan Peterson. Started reading the Bible. How could there be compelling narratives in this thing? There's only two sources of inspiration, guys. Hello? It's either inspired by man or inspired by God. So if there's actual inspiration in the Bible, and there's actual inspiration in the Bible, it would not be around 2,000 years after the fact, and would not be the most profoundly influential book in the history of our civilization by far. So there's profoundly influential things in the Bible, so it's definitely inspired. So only two sources of inspiration, man, God. Try and see it sourced to man, try and really piece that together and make it a compelling case. It's going to be impossible. Why? Because there are universal oughts buried in there, and those are just impossible to justify given atheism, as I said a few times now. So there you have it, kids. That's all for now. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.